Part 1. The Origin of Strength. Mastering Emotions. True human strength does not lie in muscles, nor in a forceful voice, nor in status or external power. It begins with the ability to master emotions with calmness in moments of chaos. Observe what happens when the same crisis strikes. Some explode in anger, panic, or collapse, while others remain steady, composed, and clear-minded in finding a way forward. That difference is not luck, but the outcome of inner training. Those who maintain calmness have cultivated a priceless habit, not allowing emotions to dictate decisions, not allowing circumstances to seize control of destiny. They act as if nothing can shake them, not because they are insensitive, but because they have chosen to govern their own reactions. Life is always full of trials, loss, failure, doubt from others, unjust situations that seem unbearable. When these forces dictate the course of action, one is no different from a leaf blown about in the wind, tossed endlessly by storms. But those with inner strength are different. They resemble mountains standing tall amidst tempests, not avoiding the wind, not rejecting the rain, but remaining unshaken. Mastering emotions is not suppression, nor is it indifference. It is the capacity to feel fully, while still choosing wisely what deserves attention and what must be let go. It is the silent power of choosing responses instead of surrendering to instinctive reactions. In a noisy society where negative news floods every channel, where social media can turn a single sentence into a storm within minutes, preserving inner peace becomes a strategic advantage. Great leaders are not the ones who shout the loudest, but the ones who stay clear-headed when the group is in turmoil. Recall the great crises, natural disasters, pandemics, financial collapses. Whom do people turn to for guidance? Not the loud, not the complainers, but those who still see the map clearly, who know what matters and what must be discarded. That composure is what ignites trust and creates the magnetism of leadership. The ability to master emotions is not acquired in a single day. It is forged through small choices, pausing before reacting. Breathing deeply when anger surges, asking, "Is this worth losing my peace over?" before answering back. This is the art of pausing a fleeting moment powerful enough to turn an impulsive reaction into a wise decision. Neuroscience shows that when space is created between stimulus and response, the brain is given a chance to shift from the emotional region to the rational one. With practice, the brain forms a new pattern. Calmness becomes the default, not agitation. Many mistake mastering emotions for hiding them. In reality, it means understanding emotions without allowing them to rule. Crying, shouting, blaming may bring temporary relief, but often leave regret behind. True strength is calmness not because of weakness, but because of clarity about what truly matters. A harsh word can be answered with dignified silence. Disdain can be met with a proud smile. This is not compromise, it is the deliberate choice to keep power within, not letting others dictate the state of the inner world. Those who master emotions do not let 1 minute of anger destroy an entire day, nor a small mistake ruin an entire journey. They do not surrender their happiness to praise, criticism, or judgmental glances. Instead, they walk through life with a clear mind and a steady heart. And it is precisely this serenity that sets them apart. While others lose control, they remain the center of stillness. That is how respect is earned and how silent strength becomes real influence. In business, in politics, and in everyday life, the truly great all share one quality: the ability to stand still in the storm. Jeff Bezos once said he stays steadfast in what does not change. Customers will always want lower prices, faster service, and more choices. That long-term mindset is only possible when a leader remains calm amid short-term turbulence, refusing to panic with every wave. This is proof that mastering emotions is not only personal strength, but also a pillar of strategic vision. The origin of strength lies within. When emotions are mastered, power is reclaimed. No longer pulled by every criticism or minor failure, one learns to choose what deserves attention and what deserves release. Over time, that composure becomes character. becomes magnetism, becomes the silent weapon that earns respect. It is not merely a survival skill, but the very foundation for building a life unshakable. Part 2. The Invisible Strength. The Power of Emotional Mastery. There is a kind of strength that cannot be measured by muscle, cannot be priced in money, and is not easily seen with the eyes, yet everyone can feel it. It is the invisible strength of emotional mastery. It is not loud, not showy, but present in the way a person stays calm amid chaos and the composure shown when facing attacks and the steady attitude when everything seems to be collapsing. This is the kind of power that earns respect not through force, but through the quiet energy radiating from within. Most people spend their lives in a reactive state. Their joy, sadness, anger, or disappointment rise and fall depending on external events. A single criticism can cost them several sleepless nights. A small failure can knock them down. Even the silence of someone else is enough to make them question their own worth. They are like leaves blown by the wind, emotions tossed about by every change. In contrast, those who master emotions resemble mountains standing firm against time itself. Winds blow, rains fall, storms rage, yet they remain unshaken. Not because they feel nothing, but because they have chosen carefully what deserves attention and what should simply be let go. The essence of this invisible strength is self-control. When insulted, yet refusing to retaliate with anger, when challenged, yet not answering with chaos, one sends a clear message. You do not control my mind. In that moment, power is redistributed. The other may shout insult or try to wound in every way, but the one who truly holds the upper hand is the one who stays calm. For calmness not only shields the inner self, it creates an invisible influence that makes others adjust their behavior. A chaotic group falls silent when a calm leader steps in. A heated argument cools down when one person chooses dignified silence. In Eastern culture, the figure of the gentleman is the perfect example of this invisible strength. A gentleman is not someone without emotions, but someone who understands them, masters them, and uses them wisely. In Western culture, the Stoic embodies the same idea, living independently of external upheavals, seeing every trial as an opportunity to forge resilience. East or West both converge on the same truth. Real power does not come from controlling others, but from controlling oneself. Today, when the world moves at dizzying speed, emotional mastery becomes an ever greater competitive advantage. A business leader facing market crisis who panics will make poor decisions. One who remains calm can see clearly, spotting hidden opportunities within threats. A political leader attacked by the media who loses temper will damage credibility. One who chooses composure earns admiration for steadiness. On a personal level, someone who keeps calm during family or workplace conflict not only preserves relationships, but also safeguards inner dignity and peace. This invisible strength has another profound effect. It transfers energy to others. In a group where panic spreads, the calmness of a single person steadies everyone. Stillness becomes the anchor that prevents the boat from drifting. This is why great leaders often say little in crises. They do not need loud words, for their calm presence alone leads the way. Emotional mastery is difficult, but it can be trained. Each time silence is chosen over argument, the strength is reinforced. Each time the question, "Is this worth losing my peace over?" is asked before reacting. Inner power is fortified. Over time, self-control becomes part of identity, making one harder to shake. It is the building of an invisible muscle unseen on the body, but felt unmistakably by everyone who encounters it. Some say calmness is weakness or refusal to confront. In truth, calmness is the highest form of strength. Losing temper is instinct. Self-control is true courage. The weaker a person, the more they need to shout to prove themselves. The truly strong have no need to display, for their power is already evident in composure. The invisible strength of emotional mastery is the foundation for a resilient life. It does not promise a smooth path, but it ensures no small wave can sink the journey. It does not erase suffering, but it allows one to pass through suffering without losing oneself. Above all, it transforms a person into someone others want to walk with trust and follow. That is true power, a power that needs no proof yet is always felt. Part 3. The art of pausing and choosing a response. In every situation between what happens and how we react, there exists a small space. That space flashes by so quickly that many are not even aware of it, and because of that they rush into words or actions they later regret. Yet, within that fleeting instant lies the greatest power of all, the power of pause. When the pause is honored, the freedom to choose a response is created instead of being swept away by reflex. It seems like a simple art, yet it requires a lifetime of practice, for human nature is easily pulled by immediate emotion. In reality, instinctive reactions are usually defensive. When insulted, the urge is to retaliate to prove oneself. When faced with failure, the instinct is to complain or assign blame to lessen the sting. But the more hasty the reaction, the more likely one is to end up at a disadvantage. The person who masters responses is not unfeeling, but lucid enough to ask, "Is this truly worth the price of my peace?" That question alone opens the door for reason to lead instead of being drowned out by emotion. Imagine 2 scenarios. One person is attacked by a colleague during a meeting and instantly lashes out, sparking a heated argument that damages his image in front of everyone. Another remains silent, takes note, and later chooses to respond briefly and calmly after the meeting ends. The second not only protects his reputation but also leaves others sensing steadiness and reliability. The difference lies in the art of pausing. Neuroscience reveals that when under stress or anger, the amygdala, the brain's emotional center, flares into action, throwing the body into fight or flight. If one reacts immediately, words and actions are rarely well considered. But creating a pause, even just a few seconds of deep breathing, allows the nervous system to send signals to the prefrontal cortex, the center of reason and decision-making. A single breath can change the entire outcome. In the realm of leadership, the ability to pause and choose a response is vital. A CEO who hears that the market has collapsed and hastily slashes jobs out of fear may ruin the company's future. But if he pauses, analyzes, and chooses a slower path, perhaps investing in innovation, the crisis may transform into an opportunity for breakthrough. Jeff Bezos emphasized this distinction. There are 2 types of decisions: one-way doors and two-way doors. For one-way doors, decisions that cannot be undone, a pause is necessary before stepping through. That is how he ensured Amazon avoided reckless reactions, and instead acted from a place of long-term vision. In personal life, the art of pause is no less important. In the midst of family conflict, when anger burns, if even one person stops and chooses silence over argument, the relationship can be saved. Under work pressure, instead of rushing to complain or quit pausing to breathe and to shift perspective, can open new paths forward. Every pause is a message to oneself. I own this reaction, I am not its victim. Of course, controlling responses does not mean suppressing emotions. Hiding hurt or pretending calmness can slowly erode the soul. The art of pausing is about acknowledging emotions honestly, but choosing to express them responsibly. Instead of shouting to vent anger, one might write in a journal, share calmly, or channel that energy into action. This is transformation, not denial. Successful people are not always cold or detached, but they know when to respond and when to stay silent. Warren Buffett once said, "You cannot live a good life if you are constantly reacting to everything." The truth is, modern life demands this skill more than ever. We swim in an ocean of information where every word, message, or comment can trigger an instant reaction. Without practicing the pause, inner freedom is surrendered to external triggers. To pause and choose a response is both shield and sword. The shield that protects peace, the sword that sharpens wisdom. It prevents defeat from trivial clashes, keeps one from being dragged into meaningless disputes, and blocks manipulation through provocation. More importantly, it builds trust in the eyes of others, for calmness always draws more lasting respect than noise. This art is not learned overnight. It begins with small exercises, pausing 3 seconds before answering a tough question, breathing deeply before sending a reply, choosing to step outside for a walk instead of arguing. These small habits accumulate into great power. Over time, one realizes they are no longer easily shaken, and in that moment a silent but enduring form of power is gained. The difference between ordinary people and those with inner strength lies in the pause. Ordinary people let emotions lead and regret afterward. Those with inner strength create a pause, choose a response, and build life upon wise decisions. Within that pause is found not only peace, but also the path to true power, a power no one can take away, for it begins with mastery of the self. Part 4. Preserving peace, not wasting energy on the useless. There are small moments that seem harmless yet carry the power to ruin an entire day, even to derail a journey. A careless remark, a disdainful glance, an unexpected delay. Any of these can ignite a fire that burns away inner peace if allowed to take hold of the mind. But in truth, it is not the event itself that exhausts us. It is how we let it drain our energy. The wise do not permit a fleeting negative moment to destroy the path ahead. They choose to preserve peace because they know energy is the most precious resource and it must be saved for what truly matters. When anger erupts over a mocking comment, power is handed over to another to control one's state of mind. When a negative opinion haunts the entire day, one has become a victim of someone else. On the other hand, when the useless is released, energy is preserved for greater goals. This attitude is not indifference, but awareness, knowing clearly what deserves attention and what is merely a thorn on the road. Those who understand this walk lightly, not because the road is smoother, but because they refuse to let each stone pierce them with pain. The world today is already noisy enough. Every day brings hundreds of pieces of information, judgments, comments, comparisons. If every fragment is allowed into awareness, there will be no energy left for the things that truly decide the future. Look at the successful. They never let a single online criticism break their resolve, nor do they waste time arguing with those who do not share their values. They know mental energy must be guarded and prioritized for actions with long-term impact. Preserving peace means choosing battles wisely. Not every battle is worth entering. At work, projects fail, colleagues frustrate, and feedback can sting. If such things occupy all of one's mind, exhaustion follows quickly. But if peace is kept, the bigger picture comes into focus. Every failure is a lesson. Every harsh critique may contain a useful truth. Every difficulty is merely a test. Peace allows sorting. What to note, what to discard. This prevents energy from being wasted on resisting things that do not aid progress. In personal relationships, preserving peace is also the key to lasting bonds. A small argument at home can turn into prolonged conflict simply because no one yields. But the one who knows peace will choose silence at the right moment, will put love above ego, will forgive instead of proving right. Not because they are weak, but because they understand some things are more valuable than winning a useless quarrel. They invest energy in protecting the relationship, not squandering it on petty conflict. Peace does not mean avoiding or ignoring problems. It means facing them with clarity, acting when necessary, but not letting them consume the mind. This is the difference between reacting and choosing consciously. Peaceful people still handle urgent tasks, still face injustice, still make hard decisions, but they do so with lucidity without letting negativity erode them. Mental energy is like capital. If constantly spent on useless things, pointless arguments, gossip, clinging to small mistakes, there will be nothing left to invest in long-term goals. But if managed well, if wasteful drains are cut off, energy remains for what matters most. Career self-growth, enduring relationships, great dreams. On the journey to building long-term vision, preserving peace is a wise strategy. Jeff Bezos once said, "If you're obsessed with critics, you should not do anything new." A leader who obsesses over every objection will never be bold enough to innovate. An individual who is trapped by every judgment will never dare to live authentically. Peace allows focus on the long road undistracted by the noise along the roadside. This world will never run out of challenges, pressure, or careless words. The only thing that can be controlled is how reactions are chosen and where energy is placed. Preserving peace is not withdrawal from life, but a deeper, more selective, more focused way of living. When energy is no longer wasted on the useless, inner calm is protected and strength expands to go further. At that point, peace is no longer passive. It becomes an active force, the strength of one who knows clearly what is truly valuable and what is nothing more than fleeting noise. Part 5. Redefining Strength. Calmness as a Superpower. In a world where noise is often mistaken for power, where many believe shouting the loudest proves authority, calmness stands as one of the most underestimated, yet rarest and most valuable forms of strength. People admire those with physical might, material wealth, or political influence, yet the most enduring power comes from the ability to remain composed amid chaos. Calmness is not weak silence nor blind compromise. It is the superpower of one who truly masters the self. When a room is filled with tension, the calm person becomes the center of attention, not because of loudness, but because their energy makes others feel safer. In crisis, while most panic, the calm see clearly and point the way forward. That is why calmness is more than a personal trait. It is a social force. It radiates stability, inspires trust, and guides groups through difficulty. This is why great leaders are remembered not only for their talents but for their almost superhuman composure in times of crisis. In business, calmness is a strategic weapon. A founder facing market turmoil may react in fear, making poor decisions. But one who remains calm can see opportunity within adversity, just as many great enterprises were born in times of global crisis. Calmness allows vision beyond the immediate, preventing one from being swept away by short-term waves. At this level, calmness is not just a virtue. It is risk management, a way to see farther and go further. In personal life, calmness frees us from the meaningless spiral of arguments, criticism, or sudden setbacks. The calm person does not let an insult define their worth. A small failure destroy their confidence, or a condescending glance strip away dignity. They know that self-worth does not rest in the eyes of others, but in the ability to preserve inner peace. That is a strength no one can take away. Many assume calmness is innate, reserved for naturally composed personalities. In truth, calmness is a skill, a form of mental discipline that can be trained. It is built through breathing practice, through the habit of questioning before reacting, through choosing silence instead of anger, through patience sharpened daily. Over time, calmness becomes instinct, and that is when it turns into a superpower, an invisible yet formidable weapon. Modern science confirms that calmness is more than symbolic. It directly impacts performance and health. Those who maintain calmness have steadier heart rates, stronger immune systems, clearer thinking, and sharper decision-making. Meanwhile, those trapped in chronic stress or anger fall prey to the floods of stress hormones, leading to exhaustion, illness, and poor choices. Calmness, then, is not merely a metaphorical superpower. It is a biological and psychological advantage. In Eastern culture, the image of the sage is inseparable from tranquility, with the mind compared to a still lake reflecting truth. In Western tradition, the Stoic stands as proof that inner strength is the foundation of freedom. Across cultures, the message converges only in calmness does one truly master the self and escape enslavement by emotion. This is what makes calmness a superpower, not only guarding us but elevating us into influence. Calmness also carries a mysterious magnetism. The calm person persuades without many words, their presence alone inspires trust. In relationships, they are a safe harbor others turn to. In organizations, they are the pillars others lean on in hardship. In communities, they are quiet sources of inspiration, showing that it is not noise, but depth that leaves the strongest mark. Calmness is what makes others want to walk with you, trust you, follow you. Muscular strength has limits. Money can vanish, status can change. But the power of calmness endures beyond them all. It does not depend on circumstances. It is rooted in mastery of the inner world. When calmness is kept, one becomes almost unshakable, a lighthouse in the storm, not only guiding oneself but also those seeking direction. Redefining strength in this era means realizing that calmness is not passivity, but the highest form of agency. It is conscious choice, inner discipline, true freedom. And once calmness becomes habit, becomes identity. The greatest silent superpower available to humanity is already in hand. Part 6. Discipline over emotion. Action leads the mood. There is a truth few dare to admit. Most of us live more by emotion than by reason. When excited, we work with full energy. When bored, we give up. When overflowing with drive, we advance far. But the moment the mood drops, we delay and retreat. This way of living may seem natural, but in fact, it is a trap that prevents most people from ever reaching their greatest potential. Success has never belonged to those with the best moods. It belongs to those with the most enduring discipline. Discipline is the bridge between dreams and reality. It compels us to keep moving forward even when feelings do not support us. The successful figures we admire are not always bursting with motivation. They too have days of fatigue, discouragement, even self-doubt. But the difference is they still act. They get out of bed even when the mind craves more sleep. They continue projects even when belief wavers. They keep commitments even when no one is watching. Discipline makes them masters of action rather than slaves of emotion. The modern world is flooded with calls to follow inspiration or wait until you are truly ready. The truth, however, is that inspiration comes and goes while discipline endures. A person who trains only when motivated will never achieve lasting health. One who studies only when in the mood will never attain deep knowledge. One who works only when excited will never reach the peak of a career. The real secret is not waiting for mood to arrive, but acting even when mood resists. Look at the world's top athletes. They do not wait for feelings. They build training schedules and obey them like sacred rituals. Whether under sun or rain, in strength or fatigue, they show up on the field. That discipline is what transforms talent into mastery, effort into victory. In business, the most successful founders are not those who always feel inspired, but those who persist step by step even when faith falters, even when the market turns against them. The fascinating thing is that action has the power to reverse emotion. When sad, if one sits still, sadness lingers. But once action begins, new energy is created and mood shifts with every step. That is why discipline becomes the tool to lead emotions. There is no need to wait to feel ready. Act first, and emotions will follow. Like a wheel starting to roll, the more it turns, the smoother it becomes until it generates its own momentum to continue. Discipline is also a reminder that life waits for no one. Those who delay for mood are trapped in a spiral today, not ready tomorrow, not ready. And then years pass, dreams remaining dreams. Meanwhile, the disciplined understand there is never a perfect moment. The ideal time never comes. Only the decision to start now exists. And once they start, they create a new orbit, one in which emotions are forced to follow action. Many mistake disciplined living for being rigid or lifeless. In reality, the opposite is true. Discipline is the foundation of freedom. With discipline, one is no longer imprisoned by unstable moods, no longer chained to fluctuating feelings. There is freedom to do important work even when the will is weak. Freedom to pursue dreams without waiting for inspiration. Freedom to become the best version of oneself because discipline has liberated one from dependence on emotion. Jeff Bezos once said, "You cannot build anything lasting if you rely only on fleeting inspiration." Amazon was not built on a few bursts of enthusiasm, but on thousands of persistent days, thousands of decisions made amid uncertainty. It was discipline that helped him and his team grow a small idea into a global empire. The message is the same for everyone. If you wish to build something great, do not rely on mood, rely on discipline. Discipline is not chains, but wings. It may feel heavy at first, but once it becomes habit, it grants unmatched strength. The disciplined are never stopped by laziness or fear. They move forward step by step, day after day, and it is that steady rhythm that carries them to places others will never reach. Discipline turns the ordinary into extraordinary, the fragile into the steadfast. And in the end, discipline is not the denial of emotion, but the placement of emotion in its proper role. It allows joy to be cherished, sorrow to be acknowledged, but never permits them to dictate life. Discipline is the declaration I govern my actions, and my actions will lead my emotions, not the other way around. Once this is understood, we are no longer victims of mood but architects of destiny, and that is true freedom. Part 7. Protecting Mental Space. The Mind as a Garden. The human mind is like a garden. If left unattended, weeds will quickly take over, draining the soil, blocking out the light, and turning it into a wild, chaotic wasteland. But if it is planted, nurtured, and protected, the garden becomes a sanctuary filled with fragrance and beauty. So it is with the mind. What we allow inside shapes the way we see the world, the way we perceive ourselves, and ultimately the way we live our lives. That is why protecting mental space is not a casual choice but an essential responsibility for lasting happiness and success. Every day, we are exposed to countless streams of information, words, sounds, and images. Some inspire and lift us forward, but others sow fear, doubt, and anger. If the mind's door is left wide open to everything, it is like letting strangers into our home, some bringing light, others bringing trash. Those who know how to protect mental space understand that the mind must be guarded like a house, if not more strictly. We cannot stop the wind from blowing outside, but we can decide which doors stay shut and what is allowed to remain. In the digital age, threats to mental space come from every direction. Endless arguments on social media, sensationalized headlines in the news, careless remarks from colleagues, even the quiet comparisons we make with others. Without protective boundaries, exhaustion, anxiety, and disorientation set in. A mind overcrowded with noise leaves no room for clarity or creativity. Keeping the mind clean, quiet, and focused is a prerequisite for making wise decisions and living with direction. Protecting mental space begins with selection. Selection of the people we meet, the conversations we entertain, the information we consume. This does not mean closing off the world, but being discerning about who and what we allow to influence us. Chronic complainers, spreaders of negativity. Baseless critics, if given influence, will drag us into their frequency. By contrast, those who inspire, who live with integrity, who pursue their values steadfastly, these are the streams that nourish the mind. Every conversation, every book, every article we choose is a seed. The question is, what seeds are we planting in our garden? Sometimes protecting mental space also means embracing solitude. There are silences necessary for hearing oneself. In a world full of distractions, the ability to sit still in quiet becomes a rare skill. In such moments, we listen to the inner voice, discern what truly matters, and separate the meaningless noise from the call of enduring values. Those who cannot bear silence are easily swept away by external currents, but those who master silence control the flow within. One of the greatest threats to mental space is the habit of reacting instantly to everything. A message, a criticism, an unexpected piece of news. We rush to respond, and each time a fragment of energy is lost. Protecting the mind means practicing the right to not respond immediately, giving space to reflect, allowing the mind to breathe. That pause becomes a wall, keeping the storm from tearing down the garden. In Eastern tradition, sages regarded cultivating the mind as the root of all achievement. They knew that only in stillness could truth be seen. In Western thought, many Stoic leaders affirmed that the greatest strength is not control over the world, but control over what we let the world implant in us. Though from different origins, both perspectives meet at one point: the mind must be protected, nurtured, and trained like a garden. Protecting mental space is also a long-term strategy. A business leader constantly distracted by rumors and criticism will lose the ability to focus on the big picture. A young person too absorbed in online comparisons will waste energy on things that do not matter. Meanwhile, those who safeguard their minds and preserve peace retain the space to create and the strength to stay on course for the long journey. This is a competitive advantage not everyone recognizes. Above all, protecting mental space is about protecting freedom. Once control over what enters the mind is gained, we are no longer victims of chaos. We choose the seeds to nurture, and gradually the inner garden blossoms. A garden filled with peace not only nourishes us, but shares its fragrance with those around. A clear, quiet mind always conveys safety, trust, and inspiration to the community. Protecting mental space is an active choice requiring discipline no less than any great accomplishment. It is a reminder that not everything outside deserves entry within. And once the inner garden is mastered, life is not only more peaceful but guided by a long-term vision where every decision stems from clarity and inner strength. Part 8. Building an unshakable identity. At the deepest level of inner strength lies not only calmness, discipline, or the ability to protect the mind, but identity. The answer to the question of who we are and who we choose to become. Identity is like the axle of a wheel, holding the entire structure steady, no matter how violently the outside world shifts. When identity is clear, decisions become easier. Challenges turn into mere tests, and external judgments lose their weight. Without identity, people easily sway to others' opinions are defined by praise or criticism, and lose themselves in endless comparison. Most people build their identity on external factors: the job they do, the income they earn, recognition from society, or compliments from loved ones. When praised, they feel valuable. When criticized, they doubt themselves. When successful, they feel confident. When they fail, they feel small. But an identity built on externalities is nothing more than a sandcastle. One wave is enough to wash it away. To become unshakable identity must be built from within, from core values, guiding principles, and long-term vision. Look at the most steadfast individuals in history. They were not defined by public opinion, nor destroyed by failure. Nelson Mandela, after decades of imprisonment, walked out unbroken because he defined himself not as a prisoner, but as a man on a mission for freedom. Steve Jobs was ousted from the very company he founded, yet he did not let that erase his identity. Instead, he used that period to cultivate his creative vision, returning stronger than ever. Their clarity of identity was what anchored them through the storm. Building identity is not about rigid labels, but about cultivating a solid core that can flexibly adapt to circumstances. When honesty is a value, rejecting profit that betrays it becomes simple. When perseverance is a value, quitting in hardship is no longer an option. When long-term vision is set, short-term failures become nothing more than lessons along the way. Identity is the lighthouse in the darkness, reminding us why we began and where we intend to go. To build an unshakable identity, time must first be given to self-examination. The question must be faced: who do I truly want to become? Not who do others want me to be, but who do I choose to be? This process demands brutal honesty because many discover they have been living more by society's expectations than by their own values. Once the answer is found, begin acting as if already that person. Every decision, every action becomes a brick in the structure of identity. Discipline plays a vital role in fortifying identity. One may call oneself steadfast, but if promises to oneself are constantly broken, that identity will crumble. One may believe they are kind, but if anger constantly rules behavior, that image fractures. Identity is not built by declarations, but by repeated actions. When life is lived consistently with chosen values, identity becomes so solid that nothing can shatter it. An unshakable identity also frees us from the cycle of seeking validation. When we know who we are, we no longer chase others' approval. Praise and criticism become lighter because value no longer comes from the outside. This is the greatest freedom from dependence on the crowd's agreement. That very freedom creates a quiet magnetism compelling respect and inspiring others to follow. In business and leadership, a clear identity is the foundation for endurance. Amazon was built on the identity of customer obsession, a principle Jeff Bezos declared non-negotiable. No matter how the market changed, that principle remained the compass for every decision. On the personal level, when each individual has an unshakable identity, they too become pillars for their teams, steady anchors in the midst of turbulence. Ultimately, building an unshakable identity is a lifelong journey. It demands patience, discipline, and constant refinement. But, once forged, identity becomes a shield against storms, an anchor that prevents drifting, and a source of power that makes one nearly undefeatable. It is not a privilege, but the outcome of conscious choices repeated day after day. And when that identity is shaped, we walk the long road with steadiness, freedom, and a strength no one can take away.